Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marchegiani here. Today's video is going to be on your diet and how it can cause bacterial overgrowth in your small intestine, or SIBO for short. We're going to dive into that topic in just a minute. Before we do, smash that like button. Really helps the search algorithm. Put your comments down below. Let me know what type of diet changes you've made that have helped with bacterial or gut imbalances that you've had. Really curious. Also, again, take some action. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you share it with family and friends, right? We want to get people healthier. That's really the big goal of this podcast YouTube channel. All right, so let's dive in. So bacterial overgrowth is typically just dysbiosis. We have more bad bacteria than good bacteria. Now, to say it's SIBO, typically we're kind of getting very location specific, right? People say dysbiosis. We're talking about typically an imbalance in the bacteria throughout the intestinal tract. We're not kind of not being location specific. When we say SIBO, we're saying, hey, it's in that small intestine. Really, the only way to know that you have bacterial overgrowth SIBO-wise is typically going to be some type of lactulose breath test or some type of a biopsy. And again, in the end, the treatment doesn't change that much because a lot of the herbs that we're using to treat dysbiosis, again, they're going to still be very specific and affect a lot of the bad bugs in the small intestine as well. So the diagnosis, people get hung up on it, but doesn't really change the treatment that much. And so in general, when we're talking about dysbiosis and SIBO, we're going to use those words kind of interchangeably. But there's a handful of bacteria that we'll see that will drive SIBO. So SIBO, when we're doing it on a breath test, we're taking blowing in a tube. We're taking a lactulose solution and we're blowing every 20 minutes, and we're looking for increase in hydrogen and methane gases. So it's an indirect marker. It's the bacteria in the guts feeding on that lactulose as it moves down the intestinal tract. We're going to have methane and hydrogen based on increases in bacteria in those areas. And so essentially, those bacteria, what are those bacteria that's increasing the hydrogen and increasing the methane? That's really the key question. Most of the time, you're going to see things like Citrobacter, Klebsiella, Proteus, Pseudomonas, Morganella, right? Sometimes Strep, Pneumoniae, Staphylococcus. These are all common bacteria that you're going to see that these are the actual bacteria that are overgrown. They've migrated up from the colon into the small intestine. These are the ones that are overgrown that are eating that lactulose solution, that are providing that increase or spikes in methane or hydrogen. Now, on a lactulose breath test, we're typically looking at, usually above 15 for hydrogen, 20 for methane and hydrogen total. Some will say methane alone, we want to be, 3 or less. Anything greater than 3 is a problem. Some will say 7 to 10. So in general, that's important to look at. And usually the 2-hour cutoff, that 2-hour cutoff is where that lactulose starts to go into the colon. And it's normal for a second peak of hydrogen and methane once it hits the colon. So it's really important to look at that first 2 hours. That kind of gives you a window of where you're at in the small intestine space. Very important. Now, bacteria, when overgrown, there's a couple of factors that are going to affect overgrowth. So lots of processed sugar, refined sugar, grains, these things are going to have a negative impact because bad bugs love easy to digest food. It's easy to break down, instant sources of energy. So processed sugar, processed grains tend to drive a lot of bacterial overgrowth, especially foods that may have antibiotic or pesticide residue that may negatively impact the microflora to begin with. And then we have what's called rebound overgrowth. Think of rebound overgrowth as you go out in your garden, you pull a whole bunch of weeds. You don't ever have to worry about growing weeds back. They just grow automatic, right? If you want to plant some tomatoes or cucumbers, you have to specifically plant those seeds of tomatoes and cucumbers. Those don't grow automatically. Weeds grow automatically. And so think of the bad bacteria as what grows automatically. So when you take something and you clean things out, you go out to your garden, you pull all the weeds out, weeds will grow automatically. Bacteria will overgrow automatically. Now, when you're flooding the zone with lots of refined sugar, grains, more inflammatory foods, the bugs love those foods, easy to process, easy fuel source for them, and they tend to flourish. And of course, if we add in there any antibiotic exposure, any pesticide exposure, antibiotics in the food, GMOs, those kind of things, that's going to negatively impact the gut microbiome, and that's going to cause another rebound overgrowth, right? Rebound overgrowth kind of on the micro level would be the food. On the macro level would be actually taking antibiotics due to illnesses. So really important there. Now we have fermentable carbohydrates. These are FODMAPs, right? Fructo, oligo, disaccharide, mono, and polyols. These are fermentable fibers that are in a lot of healthy foods. You see them in broccoli. You see them in cruciferous vegetables. You see them in onions. You see them in garlic. when there's an overgrowth, those foods sometimes can provide a fuel source for a lot of these bugs. And you may notice you get more gassy or bloaty or burpy, or you may have motility disruptions because bacterial overgrowth, especially methane, may drive constipation, slower motility. Hydrogen may drive more diarrhea. And so these may affect motility. And so it's important that in the early phases, we like to restrict FODMAPs because we knock down the bugs three ways. We starve them out, we kill them, and then we crowd them. So we starve, kill them with specific herbs, and then we crowd them out with specific beneficial flora after the fact. The starving comes from making a lot of these diet changes. So of course, we're trying to be eating whole foods. We're trying to be avoiding refined sugar, grains, inflammatory foods, and we're also trying to restrict fermentable carbohydrates out of the gates. Now, when we come in there and do killing, though, I find adding some FODMAPs in there can be helpful. Dr. Pimentel has done studies looking at things like guar gum, adding little bits of guar gum and things like that to antibiotic protocols, and he found better success. So why? Because think of it as cheese on the mousetrap. Think of it as like you want to go shark diving. You just don't put a cage down in the middle of the ocean and jump in. Typically, you may chum the waters a little bit to kind of get the sharks to come by. Think of that's what we're doing when we add guar gum in or some type of fermentable carbohydrate in. We're trying to chum the waters to really get the bugs out. Now, when the bugs are out of hiding, then we can use specific antimicrobials and really knock things down. Now, also, another factor that can affect digestion or bacterial overgrowth is just poor digestion in general. If we have a lot of food intolerances, food allergies, we're not breaking certain foods down due to inadequate enzymes, acids, biliary insufficiency, that can definitely be problematic. And so if we have poor digestion on that, that's going to be a big, big problem there because we got to get the enzymes, the acids up. All of those things make a really, really big difference. So we want to be on top of that. And that plays a huge, huge role. And then, of course, eating good proteins, eating good fats. If we're consuming lots of carbohydrate, that's going to drive things like too much fruit, any kind of fruit juice, even if it's not processed or refined sugar, that's going to be a problem. So we got to be on top of that. All right. And so I always tell patients we got to dysglycemia, making your blood sugar go up and down, up and down. That can definitely be problematic. So on that front, very important that we're on top of all that. Now, diet and lifestyle wise, of course, stress, chronic inflammation can really shut down hydrochloric acid, can shut down enzymes, can shut down your body's ability to activate your digestive juices. And of course, the more we have food sitting there in our gut, not breaking down optimally, we can have fermentation, rancidification, putrefaction. Essentially, that food inside your tummy rots. And that's going to create lots of problems. And so we want to be on top of that. That's very important. Indigestion can create issues. Of course, the more indigestion we have, the more chance we're going to have gut permeability, leaky gut. The more gut permeability we have, the more undigested foods, bacteria, endotoxins, lipopolysaccharides. These foods can make their way in to the intestinal tract, and that's not good either because then that can create immune stress. So guys, if you want to dive in deeper and really hone in on your diet and really work on the bacterial imbalances that's in your gut, maybe stimulating an autoimmune issue, maybe causing mood or energy issues, or just stressing out your body's ability to digest and absorb nutrients, maybe it's causing brain fog, right? Feel free to click down below. I'll put my link from my office where you can reach out directly if you want to have more help and more support. We are here to help you worldwide. And any other questions, put your comments below. And if you guys enjoyed today's podcast, please let us know as well. Now, I think starting off here, foundational nutrients are going to be hydrochloric acid, enzymes. These are going to be foundational. Of course, if there's a lot of gut inflammation, we may add in healing and soothing nutrients to really work on calming the gut lining. I'll put some recommended products down below. And typically, we want to do specific gut testing. I'm a bigger fan of higher quality stool testing. I'll typically do that with the organic acid testing instead of breath testing. Breath testing is good, but I can get more information out of other tests. So it's something I put in my tool bag, but it's not something I use every single time. I like to cast a bigger net when I go fishing. That way I can catch more things versus a smaller net, which is what I consider with the SIBO breath test. So if you enjoyed it, thumbs up, comments below, links below for your references too, guys. All right, have a good day. Take care. Bye.